Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of VMblog's expert interview series. And today we've got something new for you. We're joined today by Rong Shen, VP and General Manager of the server product line at Inspur Information, and Ashish Nadkarni, the Group Vice President of Infrastructure Systems, Platforms, and Technologies at IDC. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
So as this is the first time that we've spoken, perhaps just to kind of kick things off, maybe you could begin by giving us just a quick overview about Inspur Information.
Okay, thank you, David. Yeah, so probably you guys may not be very familiar with Inspur, but Inspur is actually leading provider of IT infrastructure, products and solutions, right? For example, server, storage, network, cloud OS, big data, all kinds of, like cloud-related applications. And actually, Inspur has been in this server industry or market for almost 30 years. We actually came out with the first a server in China. There's a local design. We're the company, right, kind of thing. Now we are the number 3 player in the world in terms of server revenue kind of thing. And if you look at the AI servers arena, we're number 1 worldwide. So it's pretty big. And nowadays we actually provide multiple platform based server products. Right, it's not limited to x86 kind of thing. So because this is really different needs from customers, all kinds of customers, right? So those servers really support good in the cloud computing, the AI that wants 5G and edge computing kind of thing, right? And we have 8 R&D centers globally, and we have 6 manufacturing base in the world. We have a presence in 113 countries with 26 countries or regions. We have branch offices. So it's basically we have a global sales in the market network and of course after service network as well, right? To support the customers around the globe. So that's high level idea about Inspur Information. Thank you.
So in 2020 and 2021, one of the topics everybody's talking about obviously is COVID-19. COVID's accelerated digital transformation across a whole range of industries. What challenges will this bring to IT infrastructure?
So that's a great question, and just to sort of kick things off, what we've been doing on IDC side is looking at how the digital transformation is happening throughout the pre-COVID, COVID, and post-COVID, how it's supposed to shape out. And, people have had to really switch over to a digital mode of operation. And what has happened as a result is, so if you think about the people, process, technology, kind of the triangles, if you will, from a people perspective, I think this whole remote work from home has led to shifts in the kind of infrastructure needed to support that. So from a challenges perspective, people are now like, okay, how do I readjust to a hybrid workforce model? So there was all in person in the office, went to 100% off-prem into a sort of a remote work. And now people are going to go into this hybrid mode. So how do you adjust? So it's a constant flux in terms of adjusting to that people side of it. From a process perspective, a lot of the quote unquote paper-based functions have gone to a digital mode of operation. And now it's going to go back to some kind of a hybrid mode. So a lot of folks are concerned that this might change some of the business processes. It has changed it for the good, but now do old habits go back, right? And then ultimately from a technology perspective, one of the biggest challenges is that of scale and managing the complexity that people have had to embrace as an emergency in the COVID era. But now that things go back to the sort of the hybrid post-pandemic world, people might have to re-examine their investments. Where have they over-pivoted or over-rotated their investments? Where have they under-invested? And sort of look at that whole environment again. One thing is for sure that everyone has been given sort of this rude shock in terms of digital resiliency. And so a lot of areas where businesses fell short in terms of digital resiliency are areas where people will continue to double down and make investments. I think the last point I would make here is, and this is mostly worldwide, but definitely here in North America, in some of the more or developed countries, is this whole flexible consumption as a service model where people don't want to spend their cash in buying infrastructure. They want to go to more of a pay-as-you-go model.
Yeah, I agree with Ashish, and I would like to add some ideas from OEM's perspectives, right? Yes, I mean the COVID-19 really accelerated a lot, right? A lot of stuff. Nowadays people have to, think about all the digital infrastructure. Probably they may not that kind of urgent in the past, but now they have to look at that. And from our experience, first one I would say customers are looking for. I would say the fast fulfillment, fast deployment, to support I would say steep demand in the IT infrastructure expansion, because this is critical, right? Customers suddenly say, I need to put up, like 80% of my workforce, on remote kind of thing. So they have to set up the stuff, right? So then they ask us, could you guys, deliver 10,000 servers within a week kind of stuff. So they want us to, hardware, fulfillment and the application deployment needs to be very fast. That's the challenge. Second challenge is basically suddenly they have a lot server nodes being deployed. They want the easy maintenance approach. They don't want to put more manpower over there. It's not possible, right? Kind of thing. Third challenge is basically they are asking for so-called performance density. Because think about that, they cannot have the data center to be expanded immediately. The space limit. So they say, okay, I need more servers in the data center. So the physically, right? So we need to think about the performance density a lot. So that's the third challenge. So how you guys really solve that problem. Number 4 is finally the security, right? Because today a lot like video conference kind of stuff, a lot of business meetings, right? A business secret associated thing. So people are looking for how you guys really can secure that one. So reduce the risk, right? Exposure kind of thing. So that's the 4 major challenges we are seeing, from the customer engagement, and that's why Inspur actually put, for the goodness is we actually had a very good product lineup, especially those we call it rack scale design, right? And with the L11, delivery kind of format. So basically you don't need to assemble all the stuff, at your custom site. Basically we put the all the stuff and setup thing, in the manufacturing stage, right? That was easy for customer. So a lot of people knows that. And we have we just launched the new so-called AI assisted operation and maintenance solution tool, right? It really simplify all the maintenance work. That's a lot thing. And of course, as a top leading server player, so the supply chain flexibility and resilience is a lot, right? Because nowadays you can tell, right? Not everyone can ship big volume in a short time in a period. So that's the challenge, and that we actually luckily we are working with our customers to solve it. I would say in a not say perfect way, but it's in a nice way.
And if you could maybe explain a little bit more of what you guys are thinking, what's driving the adoption of new servers in the data center, and talk about why that's important.
So from our side, what we're seeing is the demand is mostly driven by fit for purpose infrastructure, as we call it, which means that companies are investing where they underinvested before, where their digital investments or digital initiatives, I should say, fell short before the pandemic. And then the pandemic has really pushed them to an operation that is completely digitized. So if you think about investment in collaboration and content infrastructure, remote workforce, AI-led initiatives where you need, really powerful infrastructure for doing certain specific tasks. So there was if you think about it in the in the case of run the bank and create the bank as two sort of operating modes in any institution or any company. The run the bank, where there was underinvestment in terms of the digital operation, has to be kept running because that's your business operation, it's your money making endeavor. And then there is the create the bank, where you need new investments to make sure you're differentiated in the future. You want to make sure that you're not falling behind your competition. I think the investment falls in two buckets, right? One, in terms of how do we make sure we are continuing to generate revenue, with no disruption to our bread and butter business. And here there's investments on how do you make sure you're spending on future-proofing your company, differentiating your business, adding new revenue streams. And these are both important. The balance is crucial. In the pandemic, people sort of pivoted to the run the bank mode, just make sure they were keeping their lights on. But now that the pandemic is getting over, they're shifting back to this while maintaining the resiliency aspect of it. So the resiliency part is going to be definitely an investment area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true, Ashish. So, for our view, in Inspur's view, I would say the adoption of new service, new technology, really, I would say come from the gap and the needs for performance. So that's why people they keep looking for like a high performance server, a better performance kind of thing. Basically the reason behind, if you further look at that one, it's really about the business expansion, right? No matter it's like an existing business, they have like increased customers, right? Increased workforce, or they have like a new business added, right? Kind of thing. So those all the things they need to say, I have to like have the more servers, more infrastructure to be built, right? For example, like resilience, the other thing, just echoing Ashish a bit, some Chinese top CSPs, like whatever the ByteDance kind of thing, those guys, they try to have like some special event during the Chinese New Year time, especially the CCTV gala event kind of thing. They have like a surge of the demand surge for the servers, right? Try to handle like a peak in the time kind of thing. So that's how they try to have the new servers kind of thing to be in place. The other thing, generally speaking, is that they actually do, everyone's look at the maintenance cost. So they look at the one. So whether it's how many services they have, and what kind of a cost they put into operation and maintenance, right? And how what kind of like energy bill looks like, right? And they have to look at it like from the TCO standpoint. Once they do the calculation, they found that so today I probably have like for example 100 servers. Now with the new technology, they can down to like 25, for example. So then they will say, okay, the total cost will be lower, right? Definitely, they have the motivation to migrate to the newer designs, right? The other thing, again, back to security, like concern things. So because this one's keep growing, right? So people say, okay, the design, because this is there's a security thing, there's the hardware associated, not only like a software piece, right? So they have to, okay, we have to implement a more stronger like a security solution in the infrastructure to ensure everything's right kind of thing. Last one, I would say again that the technology development, right? So those new technology things is really make the new services possible. So the AI, right? The 5G things, make the edge computing things really make things change a lot of stuff. Autonomous driving stuff. I mean, this is like to me, they stimulate each other, right? The new services needs new technology, and the new technology supports the new services kind of thing. So that's I would say that's the way why people they do adopt the new service, new technology. That's the main reasons behind.
And it'd be great if you could maybe talk a bit deeper and into specifics, like what's new with the M6 line of the Inspur servers.
Yeah, thank you. Good one. So I will put it this way. So for every new generation of our server products, we have to constantly, we're thinking about how to break the space limit, right? The server nodes kind of thing. Break the limit to increase the computer density can, increase the like storage density, increase the I/O expansion kind of thing, right? Of course, people say, how can you do that? Right? Why you cannot, they did that in the past. Now you can do that. So simply because of the, progressing of the technology kind of thing, right? So of course, other than that, there's how you can really increase the ease of use, right? How you can really strengthen the like data and system security kind of thing. That's in a constant the asks, right? So for M6, actually, we started from the customer role requirement. So basically, we collected like over 20,000 raw needs or requirement from customers, so, all kinds of different customers, no matter the cloud players or the traditional players, financial guys or security guys, kind of thing. So collected those things, and from there, and combined with Inspur's design philosophies, right? So we have four. Basically, first of all, how we can really have breakthrough innovations in the design. So it's not like just social kind of thing, just make it happen kind of thing. How we can challenge ourselves. So this is breakthrough stuff, right? Second thing is we really look at the engineering front. How we can really we call it a precise engineering. Basically, how we can make sure the things is well fit. You keep doing that, keep trying, keep validating. See, this is the best solution for that one, right? Third one, security as the critical piece for us. So we need to make sure our product from generation to generation will become more secure, right? Kind of thing, more secure. And the last piece, our design philosophy is how we can really embrace the openness. So this is like a principle from us, because we do think, our company, we cannot solve all the problems, by ourselves. We have to rely on others. It's like this is how this industry, works, right? So basically, from early days in open source software, then later on open source hardware kind of thing. So we want, work with other guys, community, right? In the community to solve that one. And for ourselves, we really need to embrace that and contribute back, kind of thing. So then I just take a bit more time. So for M6, and just give you some examples for like breakthrough innovations I mentioned earlier. The first one's like our new product, like 5468. This is an AI server. So I call that as a one for all kind of thing. Means one design for all kinds of different, AI, usage scenarios, right, kind of thing. Because some customers, they don't want to like change the designs, change the servers for different types of AI usage. So they just say, okay, just use that one. And now for this time period, we use that way. Then next time I will just for other purpose, right, kind of thing. So this one we actually based on like Inspur's, we have like a big ecosystem built up around us. So we validate a lot like mainstream GPU adding cards, right? So we can with that design we can support like up to 8 training cards and 20 like inference cards. The different that's total numbers, but we embrace other different brands as well. And we have like a topology built in as well. It's like we can use that we call it soft switch, right? For the training, it's a balance or the common or like a cascade kind of thing. So people they don't need to like open up servers, do the hard switch thing. And so from the layout stuff, right? So we actually use the kind of thing. So that was really cool, and the performance is actually very stunning as well. I would say I remember it's 5 flops in terms of training and 10 pops in terms of inference kind of thing. The other thing, quick one, maybe like our new server 5180 M6, right? This one actually we first time we added like 32 E1.S Lula SSD inside, because we heard from customers they want like support the concurrent computing, support some peak time, and they need a high speed storage, high speed IO kind of thing. And this one we look at all the ways, and it's really hard, right, to have a big storage in one node. So with 32 E1.S kind of thing, it's a very early stage. So we actually adopt that as a leading player, and that added up is 256 the terabyte the terabyte kind of thing. You have to change the structure because there's like backplane inside as well. You make sure everything's right. So it's quite challenging, and we make it happen kind of thing. So that's one thing. And the other thing I tried to mention, the precision engineering. Basically, we actually look at the bare metal, kind of approach, that's quite popular today, right? So if you look at those, bare metal kind of approach, you have to like pop up the, add in, so-called small NICs, first, right? Kind of thing. Before the server, the whole system, main system gets ready kind of thing. So if you look at the power supply thing, the standby thing cannot support the small NIC. So we actually then work with our power supply vendors to like change the specs or standard, right? Power supply standard to make sure the power supply even at the standby status can support boot the small NIC kind of thing. So this is we tried things to make it happen. And the last one, probably security in the front, we actually implemented the like so-called dual BNC, dual BIOS chip. So chip level redundancy, because now there's more and more like service being deployed in the remote places where it's hard for people to get access immediately, right, to do the maintenance things. So we put then with remote firmware upgrade. It's a very natural thing, and in some cases it just happen, and it's remote upgrade of the firmware just failed. Then you lost the control of the server, right? Connect with the server, connection with the server. So dual chip kind of approach really help that one. Once the main BNC chip failed, the standby one will kick in immediately. So we can still maintain the connection with the server, maintain the management channel with that. So I just sorry for it, take a bit more time to let people know what we have for the new M6 servers.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the technology with the M6 server line and the feedback you got from customers. Just kind of curious, what was it designed with any specific use cases in mind? And maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit more.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, so one like stuff is like the concurrent computing, right? That's the thing, so especially for some like peak time. For example, there's like a shopping event nowadays, like a US Black Friday kind of thing, like a Cyber Monday kind of thing. The China one, there's like a so-called like 11/11 kind of thing, right? So this is how they can really use that to solve the problem. And but for our server, M6 product family, so basically it's we call it a general purpose stuff. It's basically we have a a lineup. So like a regular two socket rack mount servers, they can really support like mainstream cloud computing, all the stuff, right? You can mention that one. And then the 4 sockets kind of designs really support those like in a database, transaction database, memory database kind of ERP things, right? It's a big deal thing. And the multi-node thing is really for some high density scenario, and support those sometimes people love that in the big data approach. And the last one is like we have like a rack scale designs. Basically, you can whole big rack with like 30, 40 nodes inside kind of thing. So that's for like a big hyperscalers, right? Those guys love that in a big data center deployment kind of thing. So I mean, basically, you can name that AI server I mentioned earlier. So we actually they love the performance increase from the new generation servers.
And with everything that's going on in 2021, maybe you can talk a bit about supply chain issues with things like GPUs and processors and other components, and how that's slowing things down from a supply standpoint.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation we find ourselves in. First there was the supply chain constraints because of shipping and delays around country to country movement, if you will. That was last year, and now it seems like there is so much of a demand that some of the component suppliers cannot keep up with that demand. And in my team, we look at both the supply side and the demand side, and it's interesting to see how that imbalance is playing itself out. And you might be surprised that even like a cable connector going on the motherboard can result in the server getting delayed in terms of its final production. I think what it's exposing two main issues. I think the globalization and dependency well, the globalization of the supply chain means that now any cog in the wheel misfiring or misfunctioning is going to create sort of a trickle down, the domino effect on multiple areas. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's too much dependency on a single point of failure. And so if that single point of failure is constrained because of shipping or what have you, then now everything falls apart, right? So I think what we are seeing here is a rebalancing, re-expectation. People are changing their inventory patterns. I read somewhere that point in time or just in time manufacturing is gone. It's a thing of the past. You cannot rely on the global supply chain process to play itself out. So people are going to start hoarding. People are going to start, really building that inventory. What it might in fact do in the process is some of the upgrade paths might become a little more rigid, because if you have so much inventory, you're not going to try and upgrade at the next, right? So you're going to try and first sell what you have on the truck. And so it's an interesting time. I think ultimately it will all solve itself in the process, but it will also lead to newer partnerships and alliances. And, I think a lot of companies will shift where they build the final assembly or do the final assembly based on what they've learned in the process.
And I guess if we could maybe shift gears a little bit and talk about open computing. I'd love to get both of your opinions on, what customers need to consider when choosing an open computing infrastructure.
Yeah, and Ron alluded to the whole open source software and hardware. It's a fascinating sort of development that we've been tracking. First it was all of the open source software, including data center software like OpenStack and what have you. And then, when the likes of Facebook and LinkedIn came in and started saying, hey, let's talk about open source hardware, because what we can do now is getting a community together to contribute to the hardware specifications. You can, in fact, accelerate the innovation of a variety of hardware platforms and components, and you can come up with a lot better architecture for the data center, especially for hyperscalers. Now, if you take Open Compute as an example, right, we published an Open Compute forecast, and in that, today, predominantly, the consumers of Open Compute are the largest hyperscalers that we know of in the world. But it's increasingly going to, the largest of enterprises, some of the telecom players, because they want to emulate that hyperscaler model. They want that, white box approach where they can procure these servers and know that these are modularly built. And so if they had to switch vendors or if they had to switch use cases, they're not going to have to throw away the whole investment. It's an incremental change and such. So I think Open Compute and the likes of Open Compute, and there's a few of them. So there's Open 19, there's Scorpio, there's a JDCC or something. There's a bunch of these, but I think there is a level of consolidation that is happening. Open Compute certainly seems to be latching on as a general standard worldwide. It helps. We talked about supply chain issues, and I think it helps in the supply chain streamlining too, because you no longer have to have 200 different types of hardware designs. You can, consolidate your number of SKUs that you offer. It helps innovation. I mentioned a lot more people are now contributing to the designs. They are, making sure that there is a sort of a community behind that joint development. Various competitors are coming in, playing there. And then lastly, I think what you're seeing is a process that is not been there in the industry, and this is becoming more of a co-opetition model that I think will ultimately foster a lot more of sharing of knowledge and differentiation across the board.
Mm. So let me add a bit more. So open computing, because this is, I would say this is like a common belief of the industry, right? So if you look at the association communities in the US, they have like OCP Open 19 thing. In China, we have like they're like called ODCC, which is a Open Data Center Community kind of thing. And it's just like initiated by end customers. It's not by the like just like supply chain vendors kind of thing. So that means there's a strong needs, originated from the end customer side, right? That's critical. And then nowadays we are seeing like not only the top guys, top players, like no matter Facebook or those like you can name it, and Microsoft, but in China's Alibaba and Baidu, those guys are looking for that. The smaller guys, even traditional player, customers, they're looking for the solution as well. And we're seeing the demand from I'm a customer around the globe. It's like European, Japan, Korea, right? Kind of thing, and of course China's a lot as well, kind of thing. So then the difference is basically, customers basically that we work with them. So what kind of things you try to solve, right? The first number one thing. So it's not say I simply try to embrace open. Definitely open thing will give you a lot like benefits because of this is open computing setup kind of thing. But then we have to think about those guys they would do that as well, right? So what kind of challenges do they try to achieve, right, or overcome? Either it's like performance density, also we call it like elastic, like compute, like a deployment, or you try to have like an easy like a maintenance kind of solution, or you try to have a lower power consumption, whatever you try to solve, right, kind of thing. So second thing is you have to look at basically they are asking the readiness availability of the solution, right? Kind of the people were looking for the so-called proof of shipment, whether this one being like adopted widely or is like just the early initiative kind of thing, right? Third one, because like what I said earlier, people may not like take 100% the total like solution from the like OpenStack kind of thing. No, OpenStack is different. I mean the setup and hardware piece there. They actually try to, okay, just try to have lower like a power consumption. I don't want the other stuff. I don't have concern on the performance density kind of thing. So they just take like part of the solution, right, kind of thing for their own needs. So that means, they ask for, they look for some customization kind of capability, right? So then that's somehow the link to what kind of expertise or how familiar, how deeply, and the vendor is, worked with, worked on the open computing things, right? So that's the the things that basically, the customers are looking for. And for top players, definitely they try to customize it, really optimize for their existing workloads, right? They have their own calculation. They do a lot of things that they know that have to be that way. And they will adopt more like, I would say, very early, technology things. And for Inspur, we actually, we are like the only like OEM players who joined, the top three, open community. So like I mentioned earlier, OCP, Open 19, and ODCC, right? And we actually, this is not only just being a platinum member over there. We actually have to contribute our ideas, contribute our designs. Our like a new M6 product, the two mainstream products, 5180, 5280 is which is two socket design, 1U, 2U form factor. We will contribute to OCP later on. It's on the in the process kind of thing. So we try to make sure customers can have those open compute based products, right? So they really help them to have a basically open computer can gives people the benefit in terms of cost, right? Because the other thing, because it's open, it's more transparent. There's no issue. If there's an issue, there's no issues. And it's more safe, basically, the more secure for you to use that one kind of thing. So that's what we are doing today.
And then thinking about the futures, tell me about your expectations for computing infrastructure. Do you guys see there being growth or a decrease over the next 3 to 5 years? And what do you see as driving adoption?
Rong, you want to go first?
Yeah, okay, let me go first on this one. At Inspur, we believe one thing, basically the computer power defines productivity. So somehow the server stuff is really related, or computing infrastructure really related to like economic growth kind of thing. So as long as the economy is growing, and then the computing infrastructure, will grow as well, kind of thing. So that's first thing, and because of that, I earlier Ashish mentioned about the digital transformation, right? There's the new startups definitely they will build their business on the latest IT technology, but the traditional guys they actually have to transform their infrastructure digitally, right? In order to get more productivity, right? Kind of thing. So that means it's just another axis, a long tail kind of thing. It's like a big chunk of the traditional companies. They needed to do that. That means a tremendous growth down the road. And that's one thing. The other thing I actually mentioned earlier, there's a lot of new business model, new services are being popped up, right? It's even for consumers, individual consumers, they have new lifestyles, right? Kind of thing. All those stuff needs more, performance needs more computing infrastructure, right? And the last one, again, the booming technology, right? No one knows, can predict AI can be so popular nowadays, right? People, so everything being AI assisted kind of thing. So, and even for AI, it's just, to me, it's an early stage, right? Kind of thing. It's just at the beginning for the moment. And the 5G things, blockchain, right? Crypto, currency, all the stuff. It's so popular nowadays. And then those new stuff, technology things will really, fuel the growth of new business model, new services things. And I earlier mentioned that this, and then I can use that as the spiral growth, right? They support each other. So the look at the outlook, the market outlook is that I would say from Inspur's perspective, it's very promising, and we are committed to work with the entire ecosystem, right? To make sure the computer infrastructure can be better and better, for the customers around the globe.
Yeah, I think that was a great summary there, Rong. What I would say is, and we look at the market, holistically, and computing is never going away. And in fact, the demand for computing will continue to grow. We are seeing a shift in the power centers in terms of who's acquiring it, who's influencing the market. It used to be where enterprises were basically in command of the market. And so anytime you could basically do a direct correlation between sort of the private GDP and the way in which companies are procuring servers. But now the power center has shifted to the point where more, close to half, but more than half soon will be controlled by the top cloud providers. And in fact, those top cloud providers have become so big now is their GDP, their combined operation is probably bigger than a few countries' GDPs, right? And so what that means is their demand is the demand placed by these cloud service providers on the industry, on the procurement, can easily sway a country's GDP if that demand gets skewed. So for example, if Google or AWS or Microsoft has a hiccup in terms of their business, it can have a ripple effect on the entire industry. So there's that, too much power being shifted. So that's one thing. And so which means that whatever they influence in terms of the compute. So if there is if they want to bypass Moore's law and figure out other architectures, they want to use more accelerators, they want to invest more in AI for their internal use, then you're going to start to see those kinds of architectures become a lot more prevalent, and enterprises will slowly follow suit, right? So it's cloud first, then enterprises. The other thing that we're seeing is a lot of customers, yes, they did pivot to the cloud, but they're also investing more in hybrid and multi-cloud, which means that on-premise demand is not going away. Some of them are repatriating their workloads. Some of them want to run some of those workloads on-prem. You are going to start to see heterogeneous computing show up, a lot more multi-silicon approaches taking place. And by using things like containerization and function as a service, you no longer are beholden to a single type of silicon. You can run your workload on the best possible silicon and therefore get the best possible outcome. And so heterogeneous computing is coming. We talked about smart NICs. We call them function offload accelerators. I think it's leading to a new kind of a compute infrastructure called composable/disaggregated. It's sort of like the second version, if you will, of Intel's rack scale design. That's going to lead to a new security paradigm. It's going to lead to a more pooled resource consumption paradigm. And ultimately, what that's going to mean is the push-pull between the market and the industry will be rewritten in the next decade or so, specific to computing infrastructure.
Yeah, agree.
Well, gentlemen, thank you both for joining VMblog today and sharing such great information. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the VMblog viewers who are watching will appreciate it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.